We have among with us Dr. Chris Jenkins, OBE, President of Commonwealth Games Federation. It will be a keynote session and he will be speaking on streamlining governance in sports federations, need of the hour. Everyone to give a big round of applause for Dr. Chris Jenkins, OBE, President of Commonwealth Games Federation. And we'll be speaking on multi-sports event, moving to a sustainable platform, reframing Commonwealth Games to a new model. Sir, please.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for asking me to join you at this very important event. So, what I'm going to touch on today is partly my doctoral thesis, but also then how we've been working over the last year, 18 months, to move the Commonwealth Games to a much more sustainable model. Perfect. So my doctoral thesis was very much on safeguarding the long-term future of the Commonwealth Games, an exploration of the potential for compromise on Games utopia for sustainability and attracting new hosts, as you can see there. So effectively, in a few minutes, I will touch on what is Games utopia. But the best way of explaining it is, if you asked an event owner to put on an event, and as a dominant stakeholder, it would ask for a huge amount, brand new facilities, and we'll come on to that in a minute. But effectively, that's the Games utopia. This was really a huge piece of qualitative research done, started before the pandemic and carried on all the way through COVID, and then written up afterwards. It took me about 3 years of research, talking to people all around the Commonwealth. And there were 40 participants. They were all experts in their areas, and many had experience of many different types of multi-sports events. There were 3 rounds of interviews as well, which 2 took place before Birmingham 22 Commonwealth Games, and the final one was afterwards to allow some element of reflection. So this is a diagram taken from a piece of work, a fantastic piece of work by Cassens Noor, which was effectively written on planning to permanent urbanisation. So just looking at it very much from the planning point of view, the pressure you put on a host city when hosting an Olympics, Commonwealth Games, FIFA World Cup. And as you can see from here, she wrote on the urban planning theory of mega events. And she looked at a concept called Games utopia. So I've developed it further. But effectively, you see here, at the very top is the utopia, the perfect mega event. And there are 3 columns running underneath: economy, image, and infrastructure. So from the economic point of view, all the gain goes to the event owner. All the risk sits with the host. So very asymmetric. And there's been a lot of academic research written on the value of the host city contract and the fact that this relationship is asymmetric. The image is very much around world-class athletes. Very much an athlete-focused experience, which is great. And we're not going to take away from that, but we can add something. And finally, on the infrastructure, the ideal, brand new everything. Brand new venues, world-class facilities, a central village, ideally brand new, also very close to the venues to minimise transport. So that's the perfect. And underneath, society, everybody, absolutely everyone is in favour of this model. So as a host, you all fantastically support it. So then we have the reality. So as I was working through, one of the things that was facing the mega event and the large event owners was a rapid decrease in the number of cities and countries wanting to host Utopia. It costs a fortune to do. So by talking to a large number of stakeholders and all the people through the research, some real key messages started to come out, which we'll look at in a second as we start to bring together the new framework. First of all, early, and I mean very early, meaningful, and meaningful is a key word here, engagement with the host community, starting to build that public support running into the event. Aligning a city or a country's development plan with the Games master plan. So the Games itself has a huge number of requests and demands it makes. So from the research it shows we should be doing those, but only if it aligns with things we were going to do in the first place. So you want an athletic stadium, you build one. You don't build one for the event. You build one and you use it for the event, and it has a permanent valuable legacy thereafter. Another point that came through very clearly, and this does depend on which countries you're in, but building new infrastructure gives great legacy, but also that's measurable, it's very, very real. Start to consider also the intangible benefits, social impact. So the social impact from hosting and from sport is huge. So you can start to measure that and put that in, and that's a very valuable legacy, a very valuable return on investment. Also came through as a demand very much from a better way of selecting hosts. End the competitive bidding. It's very expensive. It costs millions to bid to host some of these events. And there's a winner and a loser. The losers don't often come back. So you start to lose potential hosts. So competition is lovely in sport. There are winners and there are losers. In this particular area, working with a series of hosts is a much better way of doing it. That's something we have brought in at the Commonwealth Games Federation. And in fact, it's one of the reasons, apart from being with you today, I'm here in India at the moment, is you start to talk with governments at day one. What would you like this event to look like? So you build in the legacy, you build in the return on investment. But also, it's a much more proactive, but also collaborative approach to sourcing hosts. And that comes on to the next point, which this partnership must carry on all the way through the planning. So for a Commonwealth Games, it used to be a 7-year cycle to plan and deliver. In reality, you need 4 years, so let's cut to 4 years. It saves a lot of money, it's much more efficient, but also by sitting down day one, you can save a huge amount of time and costs. But fundamentally, there is a massive shift of power within the stakeholders. It's moving away from the event owner towards the host. It becomes collaborative. It becomes an equal relationship. So this is the framework that the thesis came up with. And as you can start to see, the pillars are still there. The roofs become a bit more complicated, but the basis is still there as well. So let's go through bottom up. So society, where before there was assumed to be 100% public support, and we know from what we've been looking at over the experience of the last 20 odd years, when consulted, referenda, invariably the local community said no. You can turn that around by engaging right at the start of the process. So you have engaged and involved citizens, which means meaningful engagement, means meaningful participation from every facet of society that's hosting. So it has targeted social legacies, which we touched on. It's inclusive, so it's every part of society, because the people who are going to benefit most are often those who lost most in hosting, so they could really benefit. On the economy, we now have a partnership of risk. We have shared risk. So by reducing the costs and realigning to what the development plan of the city is required, so you're not saying do this, you're saying I want to do this for all sorts of reasons, you start to bring down costs, but you start to get better returns on investment, and you avoid negative legacy, a stadium that no one wants at the end of the day. The athlete experience is still there, but it becomes a concept of shared image, because both parties can win here. Repositioning a country or a city in the global context, the image of that city, but also the sense of place, is very important. So you have shared image. The athletes have a fantastic time. They get their exposure. The city gets its exposure. And then the infrastructure, by aligning to the existing development plan, you're delivering facilities and infrastructure that the city needs and the city wants and would have built anyway, and you're using those. And you only build new where it's desired. And you use existing facilities. Brings down costs, it's much more efficient, and gives a far higher return on investment, both real and social. Then move up, I've got host city, proactive support for new cities to bid. So that's our role, to go out and spread the message and say, these are the benefits you can get. You should be thinking about hosting. We can work with you. We can collaborate with you to deliver the things that you want. And at the very top, the willingness of our members within our organisation to compromise, to accept that some of the power has shifted away from them towards the host. So it's taking Cassandor's model and modifying it. And that was the basis of what we've now built, how we get a Commonwealth Games to a sustainable new platform. So we combine this research with the strategic desire of the Commonwealth Sport, the Commonwealth Games Federation, and its strategic plan, Commonwealth United. A lot of this work's been done previously. The Games Value Framework identified positive legacies. And I'd now like to share with you Commonwealth Sport's new sustainable model for the Games, repositioning the Games and sport at the heart of the Commonwealth, increasing its value. So we touched on the more theoretical side of what we've been doing. Now here's the more practical side. So let's look at sport. Let's look at the power of sport. So sport is beautiful. Sport helped me be who I am. Sport gave me life. Sport shaped my character. Sport developed me as a person. Sport took me to school, and sport gave me work. So we're looking at the positive reasons for doing sport. These inspiring words of Samson Nakutu from Kenya, who was at a GAPS camp. GAPS is a program that we run at Commonwealth Sport. It's disability inclusion. And he was at the camp. He's been at the camp as an athlete and now as a coach. Now as a child, Samson suffered from polio. He ran away from home when he was just 9 years old, and he lived on the streets of Nairobi. He became a Paralympian through sport, and he's now an inspirational powerlifting coach, and he is an amazing person. He's truly inspirational to his athletes. But he demonstrates the power of sport, how it can transform, how it can be a transformative force for good. So earlier, we touched on how you align the wishes of the local community to hosting by widespread, inclusive, meaningful engagement. Here we're now going to start to see how you use sport to drive forward within society. Because sport has the unparalleled ability to address some of the most urgent challenges we face today. Things we've been talking about this morning. Sport is an amazing place to have conversations about very difficult global issues. It also has a fantastic return on investment. We touched on earlier how we can get return on investment through hosting. But just sport itself, there's a new piece of research out from Sport, England, Wales and Scotland. And it's a piece of research run by University of Sheffield Hallam, which shows there's a social return on investment of 4.4 times. So for every dollar you spend in sport, you get a social return on investment of $4.4. It's a remarkable number. However, and I think it's a real tragedy. Now, not the case here in India. We've been talking with a lot of politicians over the last few days about how sport is being moved up the agenda. That is not the case in a large number of countries in the Commonwealth and within the world. Sport has fallen far too far down the political agenda. It is too low in government priorities in far too many countries in the world. And we need to reverse this trend together. We can leverage the power of sport. We can change mindsets. We can enhance national development priorities through sports. And one of the challenges and one of the opportunities we have at Commonwealth Games Federation is the Games themselves are the largest positive manifestation of the Commonwealth. So the whole world looks towards us. So sport creates this safe place to have difficult discussions, but it also allows us, it's given us a great opportunity to reposition sport within the Commonwealth. So what we've done is we've identified a series of wealths within Commonwealth. So we're going to touch on each of these. There's sport wealth, diplomatic wealth, economic wealth, social wealth, and cultural wealth. And sitting right at the heart is Commonwealth United. It's saying we as an organisation, we as the Commonwealth Games, we as Commonwealth Sport can do anything, can really help you within the Commonwealth, can help governments achieve their priorities. So it increases the relevance of Commonwealth sport to the youth of the Commonwealth. It enhances resilience. And this new wealth model puts the Games back at the heart of the Commonwealth. It puts sport back at the heart of the Commonwealth. And it makes it relevant to all people within the Commonwealth. So let's look at each of them in turn. And it starts to understand then how a sustainable model can really enhance what we do. So looking at diplomatic wealth. Well, you've had a lot of diplomatic wealth here over the last few days. You've been sitting and talking, representing your organisations coming from different countries, talking about the issues that you face back at home and working collectively. So sport brings nations together, fosters exchange, mutual respect, strengthens ties between the countries, and presents many opportunities for sharing, cooperating, and advancing global goals and peace. Sport can be a unifying force, but more importantly, it gives everyone a voice, and that voice can be listened, and it can promote both national and Commonwealth identities. So you've experienced diplomatic wealth. You bring countries together, put them in a room, those ministers, those people, those athletes, those coaches, government officials, they create diplomatic wealth. And that happens all around a big event like a Commonwealth Games. It's a real value. So let's look at sport wealth. Whether it's the Olympics or the Commonwealth Games or the youth versions or FIFA World Cup, they all look for excellence, focuses on the elite. Sport wealth is much, much more than that. Through sport, individuals and communities flourish. What is sport but activity, health, well-being, social cohesion, teamwork, builds respect, tolerance, creates spaces for young people to thrive. A strong, inclusive sports system means no one is left behind, from grassroots up to elite. And we can demonstrate how sport can really change mindsets. So on the right, the extreme right, you will see a lady called Friana. She was at Gold Coast Games, and that's a picture of her on the podium. I mentioned GAPS earlier on. It's a disability inclusion program. So it allows disabled people who are in many of our Commonwealth countries, who are probably hidden away, to come out, join in sport. So she went to the first camp, a pilot project run in Australia in Griffith University. She had a week of coaching, sports science, fitness, well-being tests. At the end, we asked her, "What's your key takeaway?" And she said, "It's the first time I've ever been treated as a human being." I thought, wow, this is an amazing program. She then went on to an amazing final at the Games. She got a bronze medal. She went home. She comes from Vanuatu, small islands in the Pacific. Their first ever medal, a female, a para-athlete, feted around the country. Great response. Mindsets need to be changed. A week later, a lady walks into a school holding the hand of her disabled daughter and says, "Does this now mean my daughter can come to school?" We need to do more. We need to change mindsets. Sport can do that. Within the Commonwealth, if you're a disabled girl, it's very low chance you have any education at all. And it's not much better for boys either. 70 to 90% will not have an education. It's got to change. Sport, by talking about this, by demonstrating this as we do in conferences, sitting down with ministers, has the power to change mindsets. Commonwealth Games is integrated. Able-bodied para-athletes coming together. It changes mindsets. So let's look at social wealth. Change the slide. There we go. Social wealth. Using the power of sport, you can make a massive difference, contribution to social inclusion, human rights, education, historic injustice, enhancing climate resilience right across the Commonwealth. You can have difficult conversations. It's part of the social wealth that exists, something you've all been doing over the last few days. Commonwealth Games is really proud because it is the most inclusive event there is, whether it's gender, disability or youth. And it can make amazing interventions. And I'm going to use another story to illustrate this. Again, lady on the right, she comes from Pakistan. She came to one of our camps on her own. So to get her there was no mean feat. So cast your minds back just after the pandemic, around sort of Easter time, sort of March, April 22. We ran the camp, and the previous few weeks, months, the Pakistan Commonwealth Games Association had been up in the community. It's on the northern part of Pakistan, talking to her family, to the community, to allow this athlete to come to the camp. Long list of conditions about what she cannot do. She came, it was brilliant, she had a fantastic time. She took loads of videos. She went back home. So to get her there was a huge effort. Family involved, community involved, coaches involved. Roll on the clock just a few years. 2 girls came from the same area to a camp. So we talked to them. So Zainab had gone back with all the videos. She'd spoken within her community. She'd gone around chatting to people, saying what a great time she had, how useful it was, how it really helped her athletic career. She's in table tennis. When the two girls came to the next camp 2 years later, they had spoken to their families, nobody else. They had spoken to their communities, and 15 came to a camp in Pakistan, 2 then came on to Birmingham. So these young girls had been empowered, all in the space of 2 to 3 years, because of a real champion who'd gone home and made something happen, created huge change, huge social wealth. That again is what sport can do. So let's look at economic wealth as well. Another reason for hosting, for putting sporting events on, is an economic return. Too often it's been measured in maybe a bit of increased tourism. There's lots of ways you can measure the success. But the real wealth that comes is what you can do with an event. How do you make it much more sustainable? Well, sport itself is a large part of the economy. It boosts economies, employments right around the world. Developing a vibrant sports industry is a great way of increasing economic wealth within a country. But you can use the games, you can use an event to promote international trade, tourism, infrastructure development, innovation, promotion, engage and involve young people throughout, engage and bring marginalised communities into work through training and skills development and employment. And to give you an example, straight after the closing ceremony of the Birmingham 22 Games, Andy Street, who was the mayor of West Midlands, one of the host mayors, was on a plane with 10 or 12 business leaders to India. And some of the Indian companies had been at Birmingham as well, bringing in the trade mission over here, brought in foreign direct investment. And Birmingham got a fantastic return from that. Their foreign direct investment was up 27%. But what they did is they used the games as a catalyst to do something else, to develop their economy. But I would also say, hosting an event along the side, you would have something like a trade event. Why Sri Lanka should be showcasing its tea. India should be showcasing its products at an event like this, because the world is looking on the event, but also that's where the business leaders and the politicians are. So let's also look at culture, the cultural wealth you get from coming together. So a couple of slides, but what is the Commonwealth? But an amazing celebration of cultural diversity, celebrating differences, honouring differences. So we want to honour the rich diversity of the cultures of the Commonwealth as an inclusive movement, not only promoting cultural exchange, but preserving cultural diversity, celebrating what makes us unique through mutual respect, pride and unity, honouring traditional cultures, bringing forward traditional games, showcasing those sports alongside the Olympic and the Commonwealth sports. So take this example here, archery. There's one Olympic discipline. At most games there might be 2 disciplines, compound and recurve. Barebow, as it's called, is archery that is global. Showcase that event, showcase that sport. There are lots of sports. So we've been talking about bringing 1 or 2 traditional sports into a games as a demonstration sport to help not only promote these games, but preserve them. Because my fear is that many of these in 20 or 30 years' time will have vanished unless we protect them. And they're an important part of our culture. They're a very important part of making us who we are. So I show here a fale, which is a meeting house, effectively, from Samoa. And this Reframe Games that we're offering and talking about offers an open space for dialogue and opportunity, for having difficult conversations. And through the games, through the Commonwealth Games, the Youth Games, the development work, the policy initiatives we have. There is so much we can do together by uniting the Commonwealth through sport. So each of the worlds has the same value, the same height within the Farley. And you come inside the Farley and you speak openly and honestly to each other. But also, we've taken some really positive steps to reset the Games, to make the Games models more sustainable, which is what you've been touching on over the last 3 days. So the first thing to say, I think the old paradigm's gone. We've got to change mindsets into what we can do together, not a series of obligations. A co-created event where host communities, ourselves, and our member come together to design an event. So the first point, I'll just run through them. Purpose-driven games. The Games is purpose-driven with a renewed focus on Commonwealth United by Sport through creating sporting, diplomatic, economic, cultural and social wealth. We've replaced that competitive bid, that smashing into each other I mentioned right at the beginning, where you have a winner and a loser you never hear back from. So it's a collaborative dialogue between the host governments, the CGAs, and it leads to the co-creation of not only a Games, but in creating a pipeline as well. Reducing the hosting cost. Our ambition and our aim, and we will do it, is to reduce the hosting costs by at least 60% from the old costs that we used to see. This will allow more countries to bid, more communities to get involved. By using existing venues and sport for accommodation, which was in one of those pillars I showed you in the Reframe model. With little need for capital investment, there is really much more certainty in the way you can budget, much more certainty in the timelines. And typically when you look at where things have gone wrong in the past, mainly from the Olympics, it's because costs have crept up, because there's a deadline, but also they're building a huge amount as well. It's very hard to forecast a budget 7 to 10 years out. You're going to have at least one economic cycle and at least 1 or 2 political cycles. So it is really difficult. Reduce the timeline to 4 years, but also if you're only using existing or you're trying to use an existing accommodation, you have some certainty. That removes the risk. That removes the need to have very large guarantees. You don't have to have an unlimited financial underwrite because you don't need it, because you can budget with a large element of certainty and manage your contingency. On the other side, the benefits on the legacy, if you sit down from day one, you can shape a Games to deliver what you want from in legacy and benefit local communities. So you build that in from right at the start. The sport programme can be adapted. It's got to move with the times. We often say, and the Olympics does this as well, you can bring in a new sport. It's very easy to say hello to a new friend. It's very difficult to say goodbye to an old friend. So they get bigger and bigger and bigger, and more unsustainable. You have to be brutal and say the Games have got to manage, stay in touch with the youth, and maintain your core structure. Also recognise, as I touched on earlier, the value of traditional sports, showcasing those as well. So there's a lot you can do around sport by optimising the programme. Fully integrated, we're not moving away from that at all. We're totally committed to an integrated para-sport programme within the Games, but also supporting it through the para-athlete development pathway work we do with GAPS. We also consider co-hosting. In fact, we encourage it in some regions. Bringing countries together creates diplomatic wealth, but also shares the benefit and shares the costs, and opens up hosting to many, many more countries. Not an issue here, but if you look in many parts of the world, staging a large event requires a huge amount of work. 2 or 3 countries coming together can share that workload, but also share the benefits. Touch on the collaborative process throughout. And the other thing we want to do is set an environmental target. These have all, the amount of carbon has been measured from Birmingham, the information then passed on to Paris. So we can now start to set targets. We know what impact it has on the environment. Let's start to scale it down, but also start to bring in some real sustainability initiatives to achieve these targets. These are all embedded in the Games hosting vision. So our next Games, in not very long, next year in 26, will be in Glasgow. Some of these principles have been implemented within the Glasgow programme, and there will be significant transfer of knowledge as well going on to future hosts. So the Glasgow Games themselves in 26 are a hugely important step towards the Commonwealth Games of the future. So we've been inviting governments to come in and sit with us in the Farley to talk to us. We've been inviting our members to come and sit inside the Farley and talk to us, to talk about their role and what their ambitions are to hosting and reset the Games. Because we're really excited that we're now building up to our 100th anniversary. 2030 will be our centenary Games. But also, by reframing the Games, we've put Commonwealth sport back at the centre of the Commonwealth. We're putting sport back at the centre of the Commonwealth. We're saying to governments, to all sectors of society, sport is really important. Sport, the power of sport needs to be used. It needs to be nurtured. It needs to be invested in. Because sport can generate all of these values across, whether it's health and well-being, bringing countries together through diplomatic wealth, celebrating cultural diversity, generating economic wealth, and generally generating social benefits for all sections of the society. I did at one point, I think, did I put the slide on? Yes. So some of these are the key academic articles out there which we can share with you. But looking at how it's driven the research, identifying the problems, building on all the research that's been done over the last 10, 20 years about how we can reposition multi-sports events and make them much, much more sustainable. But thank you all very much for inviting me here today. Really enjoyed it, so I hope you found it useful. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your insightful session. Now I request Ms. Katie Sadleir, Chief Executive Officer, Commonwealth Games Federation, Mr. Adille Sumariwalla, Vice President of World Athletics, and Professor Bimal N. Patel, Vice-Chancellor of Rashtriya University, to come up on the dais for a small moderation panel discussion. We'll be starting with a small panel discussion on streamlining governance in sports federation need of the hour. Firstly, I will request Mr. Adille Sumariwalla, Vice President of World Athletics, to bless on some light on the topics. So please.
Good afternoon. I think I'm not going to go into the niceties and talk about it, but I think governance in sports is the need of the hour. Governance in sports is non-negotiable. Good governance has to be there. And I think that the new bill which the government of India is going to introduce in the coming session of Parliament next month, I think will be a game changer. We are happy to discuss the different sections of it, but it's very, very important that we move in that direction, support the bill, and ensure there is good governance across the board, whether it's in federations, whether it's at district level, whether it's at state level, because without good governance, sports will never improve. Without good governance, you will not reach the top. I just wanted to make a few opening remarks and then we can take it from there.
Sure, sir. Now I'll be requesting Ms. Katik Sadleir to please throw on some light on the topic.
Thank you. It is a topic of real interest to me. I mean, I think I had my first governance role position when I was 25, very young, just finished a swimming career and went straight on to the New Zealand Swimming Federation board, and that was a bit of a shock in terms of what the expectations were. You know, how you used to, as an athlete, criticize all the administrators for not knowing what they were doing, and then all of a sudden you're on the other side of the fence and you realize how complex it is. But I think, you know, when I look at governance and governance improvements, one of the challenges when I look at all the boards that I've been associated with or supported is training, is that quite often people get onto governance positions because they've been elected and they're passionate about the sport, so the technical aspect of it, but they haven't had the opportunity to go through good governance training. And so that whole kind of concept of what I think is really important for national governments or organizations is to ensure that democratic processes are really important in terms of selection on governance, but making sure that you've got the resources to help people understand what their role is as a director when they take on those roles, I think is something that we need to do more of.
Thank you very much, Adille and all of you. I have one question, and I would like to request your perspective on coming from your field. For example, in World Federation of Athletics, you from Commonwealth, and also Chris. Two questions. One, how much regulation is desirable, right? Because when we want to develop, if I use the market theory of economics, then you need to have regulation, but also you have to allow the players to develop the markets. So do you think there is too much of regulation in the sports field and less of development? That is first question. Second question is, how much judicial interference is desirable? Because in countries like India, one can find that if there is something goes wrong in governance, there are all kinds of public interest litigations, and under the disguise of transparency, fairness, vested interest, then they judicially encroach upon every aspect of development. What is the perspective of, let's say, some of the Western countries? How much judiciary is taking note of, trying to become more active, also in killing actually the sports development? So maybe perhaps these are two radical questions, but I would really like to know, because in my personal assessment, these are the things which will actually inhibit or contribute to the growth and development of sports in countries like India. Thank you.
Who wants to go? You want to go?
Yeah. So I guess I'll just focus in on the last point, so how much judicial interference. I mean, effectively, if you get good governance and everyone buys into it, and as Katie said, people are trained up, and as Adille says, there's a legal basis. In a sense, that should be the last resort. So because any type of, if you're going to court, it's going to cost you a lot of money, it's a lot of time. Athletes want to train, coaches want to coach, boards of sports want to govern and want to basically further or support their athletes' development. So if you get the governance right and people really buy into it and support it, then I would argue that it really is the last resort. It only goes there when something's gone really wrong. There should be all sorts of processes to allow, whether it's arbitration or mediation or resolving issues in a friendly way. And you're also talking about, if you like, the dynamics within the sporting environment, people are always trying to do better. So it is like any field, whether it's commerce or technology, things are constantly going to evolve. And last year I had the honour, it was quite a tricky one, of moderating a debate on the use of AI in sport. Would this harm sport? Would this mean some countries get left behind, some athletes get behind? And that was an interesting debate because it's coming, you can't ignore it, but it's something that we've not factored in yet. It's something that's not got to boards. It's not, it's coming our way. So these challenges will always be there. But I think when you look at governance, for most athletes, it's about giving them a fair playing field. So that if they are the fastest, then they get recognised as the fastest and the best. So for them, it is a fair playing field. As Katie said, when she moved from sport into governance, you get shocked at how much else there is. I remember many years ago when I was competing, a person came in from British Rowing and said, we've got a new governance structure. And I said, will it make my boat go faster? And that's all I was interested in. He said no. He probably should have said yes. It will make it go faster. It might be after you've retired, but it will help. So I think coming back to your first point, if you get governance right, the athletes will benefit, the coaches will benefit, and you don't waste a lot of time arguing and getting to sport, but everyone has to buy into it.
I guess I would just add to that, governance right, jurisdiction, arbitration later. But there are, I guess, some vulnerable issues that exist in the world of sport that do need, integrity commissions, et cetera, et cetera. I think of some of the athlete harassment issues, and so having a body where people feel safe that they can be heard, that where they don't feel because of the balance of power inside organizations. Like I always, whenever I'm talking to coaches and high performance systems, it's always about getting the balance of power correct. And sometimes it's not. And so having those structures that are there to come up with proper resolutions for the overall reputation of the sport and for the benefit and the welfare of both athletes and coaches, I think is quite important.
Yep. So I will give you an Indian perspective. One, do you need governance? Yes. But governance has to be moving in the direction of development of the sport, not just policing. If it's just policing, you have a problem. And then you restrict the sport because you keep trying to police it, and then you try to police it more, and you try to police it more. Case in point, the new constitution of the Indian Olympic Association, disaster. It's an absolute disaster because it kills everything sport stands for. So, who interfered in it? The courts. Today in India, courts have absolutely overreached. Courts are responsible for destruction of sport in India because they keep giving orders which they do not understand. I'm being very careful, so I'm not in contempt of court. I'm being very careful about what I say. They have. Even if they do, I've been held in contempt earlier. So, but anyway, I'll give you an example. An event called Kabaddi. There was a dispute. Two parties went to court. Court appointed an administrator. For the last 7 years, the administrator, who's a retired judge, refuses to leave his post, even after the election is held. On some legal, why? Because he's getting paid 5 lakhs a month. He has a car, he has an assistant, he has a driver. He's retired. He didn't get paid 5 lakhs as judge, but he's getting paid 5 lakhs here. Why would he leave? So, there are 7 associations in National Association in India where there are administrators. There is a judgment of the Delhi High Court dated 16/8/2022. The judge who gave the judgment now wants to become an administrator. I mean, how bad is that? So, you need a proper legal system to resolve these issues. You need a panel of arbitration of sport, something like a CAS, who understand the sport and who do not want to interfere. There is a lawyer called Rahul Mehra who keeps filing public interest litigations, showing he's the great protector of sports. Recently, in one of the cases which he took up, the judge asked him, is your federation that you're fighting for compliant with the sports code? He says no. And he's been fighting, shouting from rooftops about the sports code and how all federations should be disbanded. So, we have to stop this. We have to stop this. And I think bringing in the bill which has the arbitration within the purview of the sports bill, I think things like this are very, very important. And if this bill does not come in the next month or so, all federations or most federations will cease to exist. Because the court order of 16/8 is so bad that no federation will be able to work. So this is destruction of sports.
Am I audible? Right. So Adille sir, I have noted down everything, and these are, according to my classification, I believe these are all corrective measures, which we are taking, including the sports bill, governance bill, which is into play. How, as an education institute, for example, we have now Bharat Center for Olympic Research and Education right now, and I believe that education, that too administrative education, is going to be the next key thing if we want to integrate education in all the administrative hierarchy or structure. So how do you think that our bodies, or our bodies, how can we involve this particular governance issues in our education system so that we have preventive measures rather than having corrective measures?
I think it's a process. It's going to take some time. So election of a national federation is a democratic process. Anyone can, even if you have no education, you can, or if you're not even high school pass, you can become president of the largest federation in the country. But having said that, we must see, there haven't been too many sports management or sports administration courses run in this country. There are few and far between. You have PE teachers. What we do is keep creating physical education teachers, which has got nothing to do with the administration of sport.
Exactly.
And therefore, courses like this should be useful. I think every federation should be open to taking its council members and going through not like for an exam or something like that, but go through the best principles, try to understand best principles nationally and globally, and institutions like yours and even Transladia that I am at, we can do things like that, bring the best practices, let people understand. I don't think people even understand globally what is happening. And there's so much change happening, and a lot. There is a constitution in one of the districts, so we're asking them to change. There are only 7 people in voting members. There are 3 on this side, 3 on that side, and the one in between, whichever side he or she decides to jump, gets elected. But that's ridiculous. There are no clubs that are members. Only 7 individuals are members. Now, where is good governance? That's where good governance comes in. That is where you need to push governance. Doping, the sports bill, again, I'm the architect of that sports bill. We stopped just short of criminalization of doping. I think it's time to now move to the next level to bring in criminalization so the police or whoever is the authority has the power to go catch you. If they find something on you, they can arrest you, they can put you behind bars. Only then doping will reduce in this country. So, where does it start? Right at the district level. Why does it start at the district level? Because the district sports coach doesn't want to get transferred after 3 years. He wants to hang on to that athlete. Because he's in a city, he doesn't want to go to a rural area. His kids are going to school. He's opened a small sports shop. These are very serious socio-economic issues also. So you need governance, yes. So I think we need to be careful when we talk governance. I think we need to balance it properly. There also is a human face to governance, but I think we need to balance it.
Can I just add, again, just thinking of your question, it's this whole concept of when do you train people and who do you train? And, I think that, I worked in high-performance sport in New Zealand for a long, long period of time before I took on this role. And one of the things that we did was we recognized that athletes are going to get fast-tracked into governance roles. Many of those who don't get the opportunity to go on sports management courses. And so we spent a lot of time talking with elite athletes on their career transition to get them to understand what the basic good governance principles are, so that they felt a bit more empowered as they progressed within for those that decided to stay involved in sport when they're off the field. And then the other thing I would say, I was fortunate that I did go through a sports management master's degree. We didn't do anything in sports governance. We did everything on everything else, but that is missing from sports management programs everywhere. And it is so vital, whether you are a paid professional who has to work with a board, or you do get elected or appointed onto a board, to actually understand that interface and what your roles and responsibilities are. It seems like it's basic, but it's something that people just don't talk about till you have to go to arbitration.
Adille sir got some points.
I think putting systems and processes in place is probably the most crucial thing. When I took over as president in 2013, my Secretary General was in jail, my president was in jail, there was no money in the federation, the people in the interim finished the money which the ex-president and the first thing I did was, I said, no, we're going to put processes and systems in place. I was the first guy to say, I don't mind RTI, let there be RTI. All the federations were resisting it. The first guy said, no, I put my hand up, we will do RTI. I was the first guy who said, I'll have a CAG audit done in my federation. So when you start moving towards transparency, when you start and you put in a process, and my term is over. I've done 3 terms. As of last month, my term is over. But the processes I have put in place, I will ensure that things go right. And that is part of good governance, is to put processes in place. Then you don't have to play the chore police game. That's important.
So I completely agree with you, sir, because the process is important, and as added that subjectivity need to be addressed, and which is only possible when we have this integration of well-thought integration, I would say, in the system. So now the floor is open to the audience for asking questions. I would request that we have a bit of short of time, so we'll have 2 questions.
Hello everyone. My question is to Adille sir. So basically, So basically nowadays in the athletics, especially in the marathon, lot of organizers are coming up with the event and the athletic federation is somewhere there is no end to the picture, and many organizers don't know how to approach to the athletic organizations or whether to get the support and what support they need to get from them. So do you feel that there is a need to synchronize the organizers and the athletic associations, and to fix the line between that athletic association will take the technical part and the creative part will take care of the organizer? So in this way we can improve the events and the runners in the country.
Very good question. We have about 1,600 road races in India annually. It could be 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers, whatever. There are 649 measured races where there is proper measurement. It's not a fun run. Only about 25 of them take permission from the Athletic Federation of India. It is very clear you want to have a fun run, you don't need to come to me to take permission. You want to give prize money, but it's still a front, I don't have a problem. But if you want your race to be recognized for timing, that timing which you can use to qualify for other events, you need to come to us. So on 18th of January this year, I wrote to all the 1,600 people, send them a mail, put it on my website saying there is going to be a meeting to make you understand. I brought in the road running person from World Athletics, Alicio. Alicio was there. We also had a Zoom, open on Zoom. So there were about 50 people in the room, but then a lot more on Zoom. Media was there. If you don't take permission, I don't have a problem, but your race is not recognized. If the race is not recognized, you could not get police permission. You may not get the municipal permission, but you do get it because some politician is involved. Politicians have decided that it's a good way, a good platform for them. So it's a politician's birthday, they want to have a road race. It's a politician's anniversary, so he wants to have a road race. So it's a problem. Why should you get it get permission? Because we've seen there's no proper medical. If there's, we ensure that there is proper medical, technical, etc. People have died on the route. We deal with the police to ensure that the route is sanitized. There are people who've been hit by cars, bikes, etc. on the route. Routes are not correctly measured. People are setting world records. People don't get prize money. A lot of prize money is offered. People call it an international marathon, whereas there is no permission even from the state body. So see, what has happened is it's become a big business. And these operators go to tell people that we will do a race for you, we'll do a race for you, and take money. Athletic Federation says you only give me 5% of your bib money. That's not unreasonable, but they don't want to give that. So they try not to take permission. So it's an issue, we are resolving it, but anyway, if they don't take permission, it's not a recognized event. And I have no problem. See, more people run, I am happy. But then don't come and say, please accept my performance.
So these are the actual ground issues which Adille sir actually addressed. Yeah. Yes, correct. One last question, please.
So I have a question to Ms. Katie. First of foremost thing is welcome to India and Rashtriya Raksha University. So what is, according to you, would be the role or significance of having athletes on board as far as streamlining the government is concerned? What is your take on that? I want two perspectives, as an athlete or as a swimmer, as well as the administrator. Thank you.
First of all, thank you for welcoming me to India. It's my second time, and I'm hoping to come back in a week's time to speak at another conference. So I'm very privileged. So I guess what is the role of the athlete and the perspective of the athlete on the board? I mean, I think, like all good businesses, you need to actually understand what your stakeholders think. And your key stakeholders are your athletes. And so ensuring that the athletes have a voice at the right time in their career. And I think that's sometimes the mistake that happens in governance structures when athletes who are still competing get put onto boards. It's very difficult for them to sort of step back and be really objective about the things that they need to on behalf of all. But having an athlete's voice on a board is just critical. And so from my perspective, and I was very involved in the New Zealand Olympic Athletes Commission for years and years. It was very much about making sure that when policies are made about things particularly that impact on performance at games, that they are making those decisions with the athlete's voice in mind. Then from the second part of the question was, as a non-athlete on a board, what was it what my opinion was of athletes?
As an administrator.
Oh, as administrative on the board. I think that the thing that I had a really fast learning track when I was 25 being put onto a board. I was the only woman, young girl, on the board of, I think 10 men in blazers. So it was quite a, I talk about having to put your big girl pants on and participate in the debate and the discussion because you were doing it not just for yourself. But so when you're there as an administrator, I think that the real challenge is to think very much about how you ensure that your board has the right information to make the right decisions. And quite often, getting that right is really important because what you don't want is to be working with a board that's suspicious of the administrators, the executives. You want to make sure that it is a true partnership. And quite often, it's about getting the information flow correct between the what's happening inside the organization and the really important role that your elected board members have to strategically steer the organization into the future.
I think you make to make a difference between being on the board and leading the board. I think there's a huge difference. Being on the board as an athlete member, the board needs to listen to the athlete and all the athlete issues need to come there. But when you are, like, say, the president, I just want to give you an example. For example, there is Apple, there is IBM, there is, say, GE, and you need a firm in India who's fighting that. The CEO of an Apple has to be equal to a CEO of that firm in India. So if you're president, you're fighting USA, you're fighting Canada, you're fighting Australia, you're fighting Great Britain. Your leader has to have that capacity to be he, she, whoever. Now, if it's just to say, because you're an athlete, you should be, just because you can run fast from point A to point B, you want to say that, oh, so-and-so can. No, you need a vision, you need a strategy, you need to understand finance, you need to understand commercial. So if the athlete has those qualities, great. But you can't force fit an athlete out there. And we've seen in Indian scenario, the greatest disaster has been when you put the wrong athlete in that place. Sorry.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for a short and a very impactful panel discussion. Moving forward with the felicitation, I would request Professor Patel to kindly felicitate Dr. Chris Jenkins, OBE, President of Commonwealth Games Federation. Also to welcome Ms. Katie Sadleir, Chief Executive Officer, Commonwealth Games Federation. And also requesting sir to welcome Mr. Adille Sumariwalla, Vice President of World Athletics. Thank you, sir. Moving forward, we will be presenting the Best Paper Award in different categories. There were different themes. So in the theme 1, Economic Strategies and Tech Innovation, I'll call upon Mr. Aditya Chaudhary and Dr. Shubhajit for their award. Mr. Aditya Chaudhary and Subhajit, Dr. Subhajit. I request Ms. Katie to kindly felicitate the presenter. Next in the line, I would request Mr. Naini and Avinash Kharel to kindly come up on the stage. I would request Mr. Adille Sumariwalla to kindly felicitate. Next theme was on Olympic host city selection and urban transformation, and the best paper goes to Mr. Bipradeep and Dr. Tandi. I request Professor Patel to kindly felicitate Bipradeep, as he is very own from our Sir BCORE itself, sir. Also, I request Mr. Ishwarya and Mr. Sachin to kindly come up on the stage, and I request Professor Patel to kindly felicitate this. Next, the theme was governance, equity, and inclusion. I will be requesting Mr. Narendra and Dr. Simran to come upon the stage. I will be requesting Dr. Chris Jenkins to kindly felicitate the presenters. Next in the line, Dr. Debraj and Ms. Nimisha to please come forward. I request Dr. Utsav to kindly felicitate. Next, the theme was sustainability and environmental responsibilities, and the award goes to Mr. Abhay, the first award, and the second award goes to Dr. Anand. As they are not here, many congratulations to them. Moving forward, I would request Colonel Anand Gupta, Mission Olympic Wing Army, to kindly come up on the stage and felicitate the guest. Sir, please. To felicitate Professor Patel, sir. Sir, please. Also, I request Mr. Lambis, Planning and Coordination, London Olympics 2024, to kindly come up on the stage. And to give his best to Dr. Patel, sir. We'll be waiting 1 second, I guess. Mr. Lambis would like to. Yeah. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. Now, request our IT team to play the conference video, which will be showcasing the overall conference in the last 4 days. Team, please. Thank you so much. Now I would request Dr. Utsav, Director of Bharat Center of Olympic Research Study and Center, to kindly give the vote of thanks. Thank you.
Dear sir, I am well aware that we are running out of time, but I would take a moment here, and my apologies in advance. So the video speaks for itself, and it gives me a moment of relief that finally, on the very day one when we have thought of this conference, that it is actually going to happen now. Okay, karna hai. So I've thought, ki what am I going to speak on the valedictory ceremony? So I believe, I rest everything here. Even if I don't speak everything, I believe you people, all of us, this entire conference speaks a lot of volume for all of us. So, but again, I was having a conversation with a gentleman early in the morning, and sir, he told that which event company you have given this entire organization to? I was like, Raksha University. So I mentioned in the inaugural session that it is going to be a cornerstone of Olympic movement in India, centered in Bharat Center of Olympic Research and Education. And this conference, I believe, it lived the expectation, and the cornerstone, the foundation stone is well laid. Dignitaries on the dais, Mr. Chris Jenkins, Ms. Ketty, Dr. Adille Sumariwalla, Professor Bimal and Patel. Of the dais, all the guest speakers, OSRC's member, our CAPF personnel, state police organizations, everyone of the dais, entire management team, media personnel, students of Rashtriya Raksha universities, our partners, AISTS, India, everyone, from the bottom of my heart, I give a great applaud to all of us. And the mission was to build a right ecosystem. I remember very aptly that on the very first day I said it is about an ecosystem. And I believe the ecosystem is live, up and running. So now the onus is on all of us, that this ecosystem is going to affect all of us. I do for you and you do for me. So now we take care of this ecosystem. As a center, we'll certainly do, but as a member of this center, you have to take care of this ecosystem, and we have to reciprocate to our needs. And this is what I believe the governance issues says. So just a phrase which I will give you at the moment is, this is not a moment, this is a monument. For me, this is a monument which is built very erectly, and now we have to keep it forward. So I pour everything from the corner and deepest corner of my heart, and on behalf of RRU as well as BCORE, I say thank you to every individual who was involved thoroughly or to a bit in organizing this very conference from the day one to right now, 30th of Jan. But I would like to take a moment and say, no, that's not a thank you. We did it for us. So this is not a giving, this is for us. So I would definitely, for a formality's sake, I would say thank you, but this is no thank you. We have to get up and running so that this Olympic movement, frisk it wheels ever and ever again. It does not stop ever. At the end, I would say BCORE envisioned to have people-powered solutions, value-powered solution, and innovation. Setting the stage right for vote of thanks, I would like to thank our Honorable Union Minister of Youth Affairs and Sports, Shri Mansukh Mandavia ji, for his benign presence on day one, Shri Harsh Sanghvi ji for all the support and adorable dinner, President Thomas Bach, very importantly, for the underlining message which filled energy for all of us from day one, Maya Bogner and Nuria Madam from IOC Olympic Studies Center for unwavering support in incepting this very conference and making this happen to this day. Christian Kern from IOC, Christian Clough from IOC, my apologies. Dr. Adille Sumariwalla sir, Dr. P.T. Usha ma'am in her absentia, Shri Ajay Patel ji for her for her exceptional support. So, with folded hands, I want to thank Mr. Chris Jenkins and Ms. Ketty for coming to the closing ceremony of this very function, and you have made us even better in this closing remarks. At the end, I would like to thank all our partners, OSRC's member, guest speakers who were there for, some of the guest speakers were for entire 4 days, and that's an honor for us to attend a conference entirely throughout the 4 days of sessions. Our partners, ADC Bank, our sponsors, ADC Bank, Sports for All, partners AISTS, Hyperlab, Sports Authority of India, merchandise partner, Grabin Sports, knowledge partner, Collage Design, and our committee, all the committee members, I would say, in a nutshell, all the committee members for keeping everything intact right from day 1 to day 4, and we see a monument happening here. Without taking much time, I would like to, with a folded hand, I would like to thank you, every one of us present here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Utsav. I would be putting the end to this conference by saying few words, a quote, that you can't put a limit to anything. You can't put a limit to anything. The more you dream, the further you get. With these lines, I would request everyone to kindly rise for the national anthem. Thank you.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Thank you, everyone.